So more or less mga 5 million na pumapatak yung mga RFID users natin. Sinabi ho nila na yung penetration rate nila as of January, meaning for every 100 transactions do sa toll nila, yung gumagamit ng RFID. Sa San Miguel po, 86% na. So maganda na po yun, pero pwede pang pataasin. Sa NLEX naman, medyo bumaba, nag-80 plus na rin yan, pero nung binalik natin yung cash lanes in deference to Congress and the Senate, bumaba po siya ng 77%. Maganda na po yung penetration rate nila. Ibig sabihin, yung mga motorista natin na-educate na on using the RFID. Bakit po nagkaroon ng policy na 3-strike policy? Nag-report po yung mga operators. Bigyan ko po kayo ng example. Sa Cavitex, yung sa MNTC, nag-report po sila na nung as of December, bigyan ko po kayo ng figures, yung isang beses na dumaan doon sa kanilang system sa Cavitex na walang load or insufficient load, 27,000 in 1 month. Understandable kasi nasa transition pa lang tayo, hindi pa sanay ho yung mga tao. No? Pero merong yung 2 to 5 times na dumaan na walang load or insufficient load, mga 30,000 plus sa Cavitex po. Ang graduated po, marami pong mga paulit-ulit na dumadaan. Ayan,
Is this the one, Yusek Gary, that you're discussing?
Yes, sir. Yan po yung sample natin. You can just imagine, meron pong 200 beses na dumadaan, pabalik-balik dyan sa Cavitex, walang load or insufficient load. So sa tingin po ng TRB board, dahil hindi po tayo nag-a-apprehend pa, dahil dinifer natin yung full implementation ng cashless transactions. Parang medyo may marami pong umaabuso na paulit-ulit. Pwede naman po sila sa cash lane dumaan kasi maintain po natin yung cash lanes. Pero pilit pa rin po sa RFID lanes. Imaginein ho niyan, isa lang ho yung ma-delay dyan. Kung rush hour yan, ang laki ng effect niyan. So kung titingnan
Yusek Gary, I'll cut you short. I want to elaborate on the numbers. Ulitin po natin, itong numerong pong 41%, ito po yung nag-violate na isang beses. Tama po ba?
Meaning po, pumasok doon sa RFID lanes na walang sufficient load.
Itong sinasabi po itong tatlo, itong 201 to 292 o 0.005, ito po para bang sinasadya na po.
Sinasadya na po yan.
At ito naman pong, hindi naman siguro maintindihan naman, itong 100 to 200, 100 at 200, paulit-ulit na lang po ginagawa, 27 lang naman po sila. Tama po ba?
Yes, sir.
Ibig sabihin, maliwanag pong ginagawa ng Toll Regulatory Board through the different concessionaires na I think the proper information dissemination is relayed. However, maybe we can work further with the timeline. I appeal dahil nga kahirapan. But I am towards as well pag inaabuso naman and hindi po ata tama. No? Please go on.
Yes, sir. So yun po yung naging resolution ng board. No? So we have to address in order for the compliant RFID users, hindi naman maabala kasi milyon-milyon na ho yung mga gumagamit. So yung itong mga ilan-nila, medyo marami rin na it appears na umaabuso na dun sa paggamit ng RFID lanes, sana mapigilan para naman magtuloy-tuloy yung passage natin sa mga tollways natin at hindi maabala yung mga motorista. So ano po yung napagkasunduan? Magkakaroon po muna ng information dissemination campaign, massive yung both operators para maipaliwanag doon sa mga motorista.
Liwanagin ko lang to Yusek Gary, ito hindi pa po sinisimulan.
Hindi pa po. Okay. Hindi pa po. Kailangan po magkaroon muna ng information dissemination. Ang target po namin dyan is 2 weeks from now, mga February 22. Ngayon, para naman maging fair din tayo doon sa mga motorista, ina-address na po ng San Miguel at saka ng MNTC yung tungkol sa loading. No? Yung sa San Miguel po, ang sinasabi nila, yung mga merchants nila na ka-partner nila doon sa loading, real time na. Yung sa NLEX naman po, they ask for until next week para maayos na yung mga kinks at saka glitches doon sa loading at sinasabi nila, meron na po silang mga 3 minutes magiging loaded na yung mga credits na gagawin ng mga motorista. So tamang-tama po, titingnan namin, meron uli kaming dialogo sa February 18. Kung makita po namin na ready na sila, then we will proceed with the proposed 3-strike policy. Ano po yung 3-strike policy? First time, kung dumaan ka, wala kang sufficient load, wala kang sticker, you will not be apprehended. I-remind ka lang po na magpakabit ka ng sticker or magdagdag ka ng load or mag-load ka bago ka pumasok sa RFID lanes. Pangalawang beses po, pumasok ka uli, wala ka uling sufficient load. So, wa-warningan ka na po, final warning. Susunod, huwag ka nang dadaan dito and then mag-load ka. Kung pangatlong beses, dumaan ka pa rin kasi nakikita po lahat ito sa system sa computer systems ng mga operators, huhulihin ka na po at i-apply po yung applicable violations doon sa paggamit ng mga tollways natin. Doon ka pa lang po ipe-penalize. So yun po yung proposal in gist doon sa 3-strike policy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, Mr. Chair.
Maraming salamat, Yusek Gary. Now, before the chair recognizes the Honorable Rufi Biason, coming from the resource person, I think Yusek Bani wants to add something before
Yes,
the chair will recognize members of the House.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please.
Opo. Mr. Chair, I just want to add, Mr. Chair, na part of the agreement also in discussion po, no, napag-usapan din namin na kailangan merong uniform mechanism wherein the RFID users ay mabibigyan ng tamang impormasyon kung magkano ang kanilang available balance sa kanilang RFID. Upang sa ganun, hindi na nila kailangan pumila pa sa toll kung saan doon pa lang nila makikita ang kanilang available balance. So sa memorandum circular na we're drafting right now for the 3-strike policy, we made sure that both providers have the ability and obligation to inform the motorists of their available balance po na either through SMS or through email po. So kasama po yan sa mga obligasyon po ng service providers.
Yusek Bani, I'll cut you short, but I'll give you again the opportunity. Gusto ko lang kung makita lahat. Ito pong nasa screen natin, gaano ko ka-importante ang Toll Regulatory Board. Yan po sa completed po nila yan hanggang 2021. Kaya bukas na po ang segment 3, yung elevated highway that connects North Luzon to South. Ang suma total po niyan ay 499 kilometers na po. Ang program naman po niya ng DOTR dito po sa Expressway, hanggang 2022 po ay magdadagdag sila ng another 301 kilometers. Ewan ko kung mabobview nyo, no? Pero ang suma total po, andito po sa atin, pagkatapos po, matapos ang 2022, ang forecast po nila, magkakaroon po tayo ng expressways o toll highways na 801 kilometers. Napakaganda na. In fact, yung numero na po niyan, if you look at the length, itong kinatawag natin, no? Just to inform everyone, for us to have the knowledge. At inikot po natin itong 2017. Ito pong connectivity natin sa tinatawag na Asian Highway 26, kung saan manggagaling po tayo sa Ilocos, babagsag po ng Davao, that is 1,694 kilometers. Ibig sabihin, kalahati po niyan, nagdagdag po ng elevated highway or expressway ang gobyerno, pamaraan po sa Toll Regulatory Board, at makikita nyo gaano kabilis, gaano kaimportante, at gaano kaganda ang infrastruktura. But, sasabihin natin, but, kailangan, ang sinasabi po ni Yusek Gary at saka Yusek Bani, the Department of Transportation, bago po i-impose nyo kung ano man ito, again, proper information dissemination, the infrastructure should be complete, support in terms of technology, para maganda naman po execution. Wag na po tayong mangyari at nangyari po siya kagaya po ng RFID. Please go on before I will recognize the Honorable Biason.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yun lang po, we want to emphasize that the service providers also in the TRB are being proactive at this time to inform our motorists po before we're going to implement this 3-strike policy of their current and available balance po. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Your Honors.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, the chair. The chair will now first recognize the Honorable Biazon. He has some question. And
Yes, yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. On the three-strike policy, I read the position paper that was submitted, and one of the reasons why the policy adopted was because of the so-called obstruction caused by those who have empty loads in their RFIDs. No? Obstruction. Now, may I know, Mr. Chairman, may I know, Mr. Chairman, if the TRB is contemplating on a policy, a strike policy, against the toll operators? Kasi marami rin naman tayong reports na nakukuha na kahit na may load ka, hindi agad nagbubukas yung barrier and you become an obstruction to the flow of traffic. No, I'm referring to the inefficient reading of RFIDs. No, second, there are reports also of disappearing loads. No, there are reports on that. So, are we contemplating on issuing a strike policy against the toll operators based on these shortcomings that they have?
From the Honorable Biazon, resource person from the Department of Transportation, specifically toll regulatory board representation. You are recognized to respond, please.
Thank you for that
Yusek
question,
de Guzman.
Honorable Biazon. Tama po kayo. Buti na itanong po niyo yan. Nasa final stages na po kami ng pag-draft at pag-adapt ng minimum performance standards and key performance indicators for the operators. Sa kauna-unahang pong pagkakataon, mag-a-adapt na po ang TRB ng mga minimum performance standards and may corresponding penalties po. Kasama po dyan yung sa readability, yung sa mga loading. Pagka yan po na-audit, may corresponding penalty po yan. Pero yung sa update lang po on yung sa readability, sa katunayan nga po after this hearing, kami po ni Asek Banoy at saka ni General Orjales will be proceeding to NLEX para personal inspeksyonin yung ginagawa nilang upgrading ng advanced reading nila. Kinumit po ng NLEX na by first quarter of this year, yung advanced reading po nila will be completed. Meaning, yung mga 5 meters pa lang po yung sasakyan, tataas na yung barrier. Katulad po na na-experience natin sa South. Yung sa South po, medyo maganda yung performance ng mga readers nila. Mapapansin nyo, malayo pa lang yung sasakyan, di mo kailangang itutok doon sa barrier. So yun din po ang gustong ma-achieve ng NLEX. So makakaasa po kayo, tinatarget po namin, baka by next week, hopefully, when we have a board meeting, we will be able to approve already the minimum performance standards for the operators. At ito po mahigpit nating ipatutupad dito sa mga operators. Sa kauna-unahang pagkakataon, meron na po yan sa mga kontrata, pero we decided na this time, we adopt a document that will clearly impose ano yung mga minimum performance standards nyo. At kung hindi nyo yan maabot, we will penalize you. I-enforce po ng TRB. Salamat po.
Mr. Chair, if I may interject after Congressman Biazon.
Yes, the Honorable Biazon still recognized.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr.
After
Chairman.
Congressman Biazon.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy that there is that direction coming from the TRB. If that is the case, then wouldn't it be fair that we first mandate the toll operators to comply with those minimum standards before we employ or we enforce the three-strike policy on the toll users, no? Kasi yung sinasabi naman natin na percentage ng mga nagko-cause ng obstruction is much less than those who are not causing obstruction. Na actually ang nangyayari nga, nag-a-advance na ng pagbigay ng kanilang pera sa toll operators. No, kasi may minimum load. So isn't it just fair na i-expect muna natin na nagko-comply ng minimum operating standards ang toll operators before we penalize the so-called three-strike violators?
Yusek Gary, and the question raised
Yes,
again
sir.
by the Honorable Biazon.
Kaya nga
dapat
po,
ba unahin
yung
muna
sa
si-
San
yes,
Miguel
please.
side po, based on their representation, walang masyadong nagiging problema dun sa kanilang readers tsaka yung sa loading. Yung mga nawawalang load po, ina-address po nila yan at ipinapakita sa amin yung mga actions taken nila. Yung iba nababalik naman po yung mga nawawalang load at saka yung mga hindi real time, yun nga po yung binanggit ko kanina. Yung San Miguel, hindi na sila nag-accredit ng merchants na hindi pwedeng real time yung load. Yung sa NLEX po, in-explain nila na yun nga yung hinihingi nila by February 14 daw or 15, maayos na rin nila yung maging real time, almost real time yung kanilang loading. So at plus yung advanced readability nila ng mga machines. So sinisigurado po natin na we will be fair to the motorists that before we implement the three-strike policy, that we should be able to be convinced that the operators are ready also. Hindi naman po pwedeng basta na lang tayo ulit mag-a-adapt. Ayaw na po nating mangyari yung nangyari nung isang taon na magkakagulo na naman. Kaya nga po kasabay ng information dissemination, we will put to task yung operators na maging ready din sila. Otherwise, we will penalize them. Mabanggit ko lang po, yung inspection po namin mamaya, isasama po rin namin yung ginagawang pilot test ng NLEX doon sa Valenzuela po kay na Honorable Congressman Gatchalian, na meron daw po silang pilot testing doon na barrier up na. Yung wala nang barrier. So papakita po nila kung ano yung ginagawa nila doon. At sinabi po nila during dialogue na kung maging successful yon, baka i-adapt na nila doon sa buong sistema ng NLEX. Yung San Miguel po, wala po pong barrier up, pero nagmamatsyag po sila. They want to see kung magiging successful po yung pilot, and nagkasundo po sila, nabibigyan sila ng info para baka i-adapt din nila kung magiging feasible doon sa sistema nila. So we're hoping that all of these things come together and be successful, at maging ang objective po natin parang yung po yung nabanggit din ni Senator Gatchalian during our hearings sa Senate. Pinakita niya na sa ibang bansa, alam naman natin yon, tayo nakaka-travel naman tayo, wala nang barrier yan. Dire-diretso na. Kung hindi mo basa, kalugihan na yon ng mga operators. So yun po, sana ma-achieve natin in the long term yung ganong sistema na barrier up na. Dapat mag-upgrade na lang ng system yung mga operators. Salamat po.
Mr. Chair, can I interject in connection to the question of Congressman Gazon? After Congressman Gazon.
Mr. Chair, I'll wind up now, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'll just proceed just to save time. As I understand it, pumapayag ang TRB, DOTR, na mag-implement lang ng three-strike policy against motorists only if complied with ang minimum operating standards ng toll operators. Do I get it right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
that is the response, but rest assured that we will be coming up with a submission to address the concern of the Honorable Biazon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At least maliwanag, no, na ipapa-implement lang yung three-strike policy kung compliant yung mga toll operators. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Wes Gatchalian recognized, after which the Honorable Ompong Odanes. But before you do so, I think Asik Banoy wants to add something. Asik Banoy, you're recognized?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Just to be to inform everyone po, no, tama po yung sinabi ni Congressman Biazon at saka po ni Yusek Gary, na as a matter of fact po, part of our draft memorandum circular, no, one of the responsibilities of the tollway concessionaires or operators, no, is to ensure that the RFID toll collection system is functioning in accordance with the approved MPSS. This is part of the memo circular for the three-strike policy. So we can ensure that the toll operators first will comply with the MPSS before we invoke and we apply the three-strike policy, Mr. Chair. Just for the record po.
Okay, thank you. The Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Gatchalian, you're now recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and thank you. Good morning to our colleagues as well and to our friends in DOTR. Mr. Chair, I would like to second the statement of Congressman Biazon, and in fact natanong niyo na ho yung mga dapat na itatanong ko. I respect the move of DOTR pertaining to the three-strike ruling. Of course, we have to put and instill discipline to our motorists, and I'm very happy that there is now a partnership between the motorist, the toll operator, and dapat ho, Mr. Chair, isama na rin yung LGU tulad ng Valenzuela to be proactive in finding solutions on the toll operating issues. No? Sa akin, Mr. Chair, instead of the proposal of Congressman Biazon, I would like to propose na to DOTR, to Yusek Gary, na kung meron po kayong three-strike ruling na binibigay po sa ating mga motorista, na alam naman po natin ay itong mga motorista ay because of the pandemic ay hirap na sila. Marami pong nawalan ng trabaho, maraming negosyong naapektuhan, plus the burden of putting prepaid loads into their RFID account. Dapat ho, Yusek, lagyan natin ng three-strike ruling din ang mga toll operator natin. So my first question, actually, Mr. Chair, I gave this and posted this question to the former GM Sales of TRB during the Metro Manila Committee hearing on the same matter. So, Yusek Gary, ang tanong ko, ang mga toll operator ba natin ever since, or siguro na lang, let's limit it to the past 5 or 10 years, na-penalize nyo na ba?
Yun nga po yung tinatanong ko rin doon sa ex-director natin.
Yeah, pasensya na Yusek, I know kakaupo nyo lang. This question was supposed to be kay GM Sales. But sige po, sagutin nyo na sa makakaya.
Ang sinabi po sa akin noon is puro letter warning lang, yung mga ganon. So kaya nga ho yun yung naging dahilan na siguro hindi masyadong nasasaktan yung mga operators and patuloy na okay lang. Pero nung nag-assume ho ako as alternate chairman, ang kabilin-bilin niya ng Secretary Tugade, we should once and for all put the house in order and we should adopt a minimum performance standards para talagang itong mga operators, we will put them to task.
Yes, yes, Yusek, sorry to cut you, no? But if tayo po ay magpapataw ng napakabigat po na penalties on our motorists, dapat ho, mas bigatan nyo pa ang mga toll operator, no? Yes, number one, the issue last December, ayoko na sana balikan to, but you mentioned a while ago na rin, anyway, and you mentioned the names of my brothers. So the issue last year is not only about the barrier not going up, no? But the issue last year was about missing load, that's number one. Number two, yung the lead time for the people loading it and papasok sa computer system. And I'm happy to hear na sabi nyo kanina yata 3 minutes lang ay prinamis na nila na papasok na po yung load sa kanilang account. But I hope na yung IT system ng ating mga toll operators are updated na by now, no? Yes. Meaning, kung magbayad man ako ng cash sa kanilang opisina or sa 7-Eleven, kung magbayad ako ng GCash, kung magbayad ako ng online, diretso from my credit card to NLEX, ay dapat po real-time ito. Pagpasok po ng kotse ko ay dapat updated po ang load po na nakikita natin sa screen pag akyat po ng barriers. Kaya ho, babalik lang ako, Yusek, dapat to, wag natin pahirapan ang mga motorist natin. Dahil sila po ay maraming ikinahaharap ngayon. Pahirapan ho natin yung mga taong nagpapahirap sa mga motorist natin, which are the toll operators. Yeah. Kaya likewise, if you will be coming up with what we call a three-strike policy against motorists, I hope that you present to the committee a three-strike policy against the toll operator. Kung ito po, ako mismo ay mamonitor ko sa Valenzuela, mamaya ho pupunta kayo. Let's give it maybe 1 month or 2 months, no? Till your memo will come up, no? Ay dapat kung ang toll operator nakita ho natin na may missing load, strike 1 na kaagad ho sila. We should even the playing field ho dito, no? Hindi naman po ito 46% nakita ko ho na kasalanan po ng ating mga motorists, sabi niyo doon sa presentation a while ago. But your presentation did not tell us, or the committee did not present to the committee, na ilang percent dyan ay dahil delayed yung load na pagpasok po from the system na nagbayad sila, from the system na dumating sila doon sa barrier. Meaning, hindi ko kasalanan din, maybe a part of that kasalanan ng motorist, but a part of that kasalanan pa rin doon sa 46% nyo, kasalanan pa rin ho yan ng toll operator kasi mabagal po yung system nila sa pagpasok po sa account ng motorist natin. So I hope, again, Yusek Gary, I know bago kayo sa position and I hope that this is something na matingnan nyo ho. To be fair lang naman po, to be fair to the motorist and to the toll operator.
Thank you, Honorable Gatchalian. Points well taken po. We will consider it. In fact, makwento ko lang yung sa minimum performance standard natin. Ang natin, nilagay natin doon is no tolerance eh. Pagka may violation sila, parang strike one sila eh. So, but we will still discuss it with the board and medyo hefty po yung penalty na pinopropose namin. Para talaga...
Sir, Yusek, for the record lang, for the appreciation of the committee, on the incident that happened last December in Valenzuela, where hundreds or I don't know, thousands of motorists were affected. Ilan sa kanila ay may missing load, ilan sa kanila has various complaints. Did you penalize NLEX?
Yung po, hindi ko po alam yung kung ano yung naging action ng previous executive director doon dahil hindi pa po ako nakaupo. Pero lahat po ng complaints, pinapadala po yan sa mga operators and pinapasagot po sila kung ano nangyari, kung ano yung naging result na investigation. Meron po kami mga natanggap, yung mga missing load, pinakita rin po nila sa amin yung action taken na naibalik nila kung talagang nagkamali ho yung system nila. So yun po yung mga...
Well, Mr. Chair, ako na lang po ang sasagot and during the hearing of the Metro Manila Committee, ang sagot po ni GM Sales that time is wala hong penalty ni ₱1 ang NLEX sa insidente na kagrabe-grabing insidente na nangyari po sa aking lugar and not only sa aking lugar, nangyari rin pala sa Bulacan at Pampanga, no, etc. At till to this day, investigation lang, puro letters, investigation, pero honestly speaking, Mr. Chair, wala hong na-penalize sa NLEX till now. So I hope with the helm of a very capable Undersecretary Gary de Guzman, I hope things will change now. And I hope that the committee would even support Yusek Gary to take on the leadership of TRB. Sana ho. At nakikita ko, mas magaling ho itong si Yusek Gary kumpara po doon sa pinilitan sa TRB. And I am very sure we need to put good people in TRB na talaga pong may malasakit sa mga motorist natin. Hindi ho sila papahirapan. At may lakas loob na lumaban against our toll operators. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my colleagues. Good morning.
Maraming salamat po, Honorable Gatchalian.
Anyone else from my colleagues who wants to interpolate on the three-strike policy? Pag wala po, magro-rule ang chair tungkol po rito. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman,
Pag wala na po.
Again?
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Kasi napag-usapan yung liability. Yes, napag-usapan yung liability ng mga toll operators. No? I'd just like to point out an incident yesterday sa SLEX, no, wherein
He's gone.
The vice dean of college here in Alabang died because of an automobile accident. No? Nagkaroon ng head-on collision sa SLEX. Apparently, wala ho kasing concrete barrier. There was just temporary division between the northbound and southbound lanes. And there was a head-on collision. So may we know if the TRB is looking into incidents like this? But this is the very latest. This happened yesterday, wherein a dean of a law school perished in that automobile crash. No?
Can you look at it, Yusek Gary? I think may the soul rest in peace.
We will look at it, and I would ask Banoy maybe.
If I may. Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, tama po kayo, no?
Yeah,
Tama po
yes,
kayo,
Bana,
Mr. Chair and Congressman Beazon. When we heard about the incident po, we instructed right away the service provider and the police po to submit an initial investigation on the matter. Once we have the official initial report on the matter, we were going to furnish this committee of the findings po.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now, Thank you. Now, from the chair to the Department of Transportation to the Tort Regulatory Board on the issue of the three-strike policy. We will be filing a House resolution on the input, of course, by the Honorable Biason and Deputy Speaker Wes Gatchalian. One, that a minimum performance rating will be prepared first by the Toll Regulatory Board against the service providers or concessioner with the corresponding timeline. Number two, if ever the three-strike policy will be imposed, clearly, the indicators therein of the minimum performance standard should have been complied. And if ever the concessioner or the service provider is prepared, you can start already on one area, not the entire expressways, if it's possible, Yusegari, Asig Banoy. And finally, kindly furnish to us on that resolution your timeline on the imposition of the three-strike policy with an agreement that before we impose the three-strike policy on the commuting public, all the infrastructure, the information technology support should have been complied already by the concessioners. And finally, number four, I am also with the agreement as a proof of concept of charges against these 200 e-ring drivers. Hindi naman po ako maniniwala ron. Kung mayroon man, kindly makikita naman natin sa computer po yan. Tama po ba yung Gary, kung sino ito? Kindly give them a piece of paper, a hard copy, that they are now forewarned not to do it again. If not, I think I am also, and I'm hoping that the members of the Committee on Transportation is with me, to ban also these drivers who will create traffic by purposely going through an RFID lane despite no load at all. Siguro maintindihan. Iilan na naman po ito, 3, 30, pero correspondingly, they have to be informed in writing. Pag daan po nila, wag na pong gawin. Bibigyan po niyo ng papel as a notice. Ginawa mo na ito 200. I think it's appropriate, Gary, to support as well your program pag hindi po aabusuhin na po tayo. I think that House resolution will be offered, and I appeal to the Honorable Biason and the Honorable Wes Gatchalian and the members of the Committee on Transportation and all members of this House who wants to be a co-author of that House resolution pertinent to the three-strike policy. So ordered. I hope that the media we have, brothers and sisters, you're taking note of this. I appeal para naman masabi rin po ninyo na ito pong three-strike policy is a submission before we move on to another agenda. Number one po, hindi pa po ito ini-impose. Wala pa po yan. Huwag ko maniwala, pagbasa social media, sasabihin, wala pa po yan. Maliwanag po, in-explain po yan ni Gary at Asig Banoy. Pangalawa po, dito po sa suggestion, opinion po ni Honorable Wes Gatchalian, our Deputy Speaker, and of course the representation of Montilupa, the Honorable Biason. Sinasabi po nila, bago naman po ipasa sa commuting public, kailangan muna ang concessionaire or service provider ang uunahin, and they agreed as well. Ngayon po, ipipenalize na po nila. Simula, not single penalty was imposed, maliwanag as manifested by the Honorable Deputy Speaker. But I think there's also strong commitment by the new leadership of the TRB that they will now imposing things for the betterment of our expertise. And finally, to move to another agenda, nakita ko na po ang test area ng barriers up. I think that is something as a tollway up north. Wala na po silang barrier. They're really testing it. I'm hoping that this will be imposed to modernize our system as well. Good morning again. Thank you to the resource person. And I hope andyan po tayo kasi papunta po tayo sa ibang issue rin. Now, on letter D, the clarification on the policy of wearing face masks inside private vehicles. Ito'y mainit rin. Para bang ang hindi po naintindihan ng mamamayan. Kayo'y magkasama sa bahay, mag-asawa, may anak po kayo, natutulog sa isang bahay. Paglabas po ninyo, hindi po kayo pwede sa bahay, wala po maskara. Pagdating po sa kotse, magmamaskara, isang kotse lang po. Yan po ang gusto natin liwanagin para magkaroon po tayo ng magandang proseso o mag-a-appeal naman ang ang Kamara tungkol po rito. Sana makukonsider kung isa pong bahay, may kotse po, sana naman basta mapakita lang po magpamilya kayo, magkasama kayo. I think this has to be responded well. So our number 4 agenda, of course, is the clarification on the policy of wearing face masks inside private vehicles. And we seek the guidance of IATF and the National Task Force on the issue. So anyone, COMSEC, do you have someone from IATF and of course the land transportation and of
Mr.
course
Chairman.
LTO?
Mr. Chairman, I think the DOTR will represent the IATF.
I think we have to ask first the representation of the Department of Transportation on the interagency task force. Sino po ang andyan, COMSEC dyan?
I think, Mr. Chairman, Yusek Tuazon.
Yusek Tuazon is now recognized pertinent to the issue on the clarification of the policy of the mask inside a private vehicle. Yusek Tuazon, you're now recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. During the last meeting of the Interagency Task Force on COVID-19, the matter of the wearing of face masks was discussed, and the clarifications are already issued by the IATF. The clarifications issued by the IATF is that if a person is alone inside a private vehicle, he may or may not wear the face mask. But as soon as the person has another person with him inside the private vehicle, meaning to say that there are at least 2 people inside the private vehicle, 2 or more people, then it is mandatory for those people to be wearing their face masks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That is very clear, but as there seems to be an objection from a lot of commuting owner of private vehicles on the issue. So from the Land Transportation Office, about Asig Galvante, on your take on the policy of face mask, please.
Land Transportation Office po, kami taga-pagpatupad. Isa sa mga taga-pagpatupad. Kaya po yung issuance mula sa IATF, sa DOTR, yun lang po ang aming in-implement. Maraming po salamat.
From my colleagues, may tanong po ba tayo tungkol po sa wearing a face mask inside the private vehicle? I appeal. Baka may tanong po kayo. Honorable
Mr.
Biason.
Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Honorable Biason, then Honorable Vilalago.
I yield to the Honorable Villago, Mr. Chairman.
The Honorable Vilalago then is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Kong Rufi. Question ko nga lang po, kagaya ng sinabi niyo kanina, what if kung mag-asawa nga yung nakasakay? Dapat po ba? Kasi 2 tao na yon, dapat pa rin bang naka-face mask?
Kindly respond, Yusek Tuazon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yes, Madam Representative.
Sir, napuputol po kayo.
Yusek Ochi Tuazon, I'm hoping that you're still on the call. Napuputol po kayo. Sayang, ano, the question raised by the Honorable Villago are very logical and practical, na napakahirap mag-asawa. Papasok po sa sasakyan, tapos pares kayo nakamask.
Na-expose po sila ibang tao. Pagbalik po nila sa loob ng sasakyan at wala po silang face mask, ay maari po na-expose po sila sa positive sa labas. Pagpasok po nila, dala-dala na po nila yon, matatransmit po naman nila dun sa kanilang kasama sa sasakyan. At pag uwi naman po nila sa bahay, ay matatransmit pa rin po sa mga kasamahan nila sa bahay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Kasi kunwari po mag-asawa kami, pareho kami nagtatrabaho. Pag sakay namin sa sasakyan, nakamask kami. Sabi nyo nga, ina-avoid ninyo na baka isa sa amin ay mag-positive or merong dala na matransmit dun sa isa. Pero ganun pa rin po yun. Pag uwi namin sa bahay, wala na kaming mask. Di po ba? Yung transmission, ganun, andun pa rin. Kasi pag uwi namin sa bahay, tatanggalin na namin yung mask namin.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond.
Yes, please.
Yes, Madam Representative. Yes po, at karamihan nga po tinatanggal na rin po yung mask pagdating sa bahay. Pero ang ina-avoid po natin ay ang transmission within the private vehicle, which is an enclosed space po. Mas mabilis po ang transmission pag nasa loob po ng sasakyan. So at kakaramihan po sa atin, ini-encourage nga po pagdating sa bahay ay magpalit ng mga suot, maghugas ng kamay at mag-sanitize po. Para wala na po yung mga, kung may dala bang galing sa labas po ng bahay, ay wag na po madala papaloob ng bahay. Maraming salamat po.
The Honorable Villago.
Siguro nga may point pero more on logical side. Ano po, kasi kung ako nga ay meron sa katawan ko, more or less talaga mahahawa ko yung pamilya ko. Whether magbihis ako, mag-alcohol ako, kung nasa system yan, mahahawa ko pa rin yan, buong pamilya. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else from the members?
Mr. Chair.
If not, on the issue about the clarification, yes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please, Honorable Biazon. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share the concern raised by the Honorable Villago, and I even made public statements on that. Kasi alam niyo, as much as possible, no, it is more comfortable for us na walang mask. For some, it is difficult because yung restrictions sa breathing. For some, there are allergies that are caused by these masks. Kaya kung meron kang opportunity to safely not use the mask, especially kung kagaya nung kasama mo nga sa bahay, so we apply the logic na kasi baka mahawa, that risk is present, no? But it is an opportunity sana for persons na to be relieved of the discomfort of wearing a mask safely, no? Kasi kasama mo naman ay taong kasama mo sa bahay and you are in a private space. And definitely paglabas naman ng sasakyan, you will put on the mask. While it is we really cannot deny as well yung sinasabi na position kung bakit, but to us, to many people, it is difficult to accept na na parang we're treating differently yung exposure sa house, sa bahay, at yung nandun sa loob ng sasakyan. But medyo contentious nga, no, dahil may point din naman as even Representative Villago says. But still, I would have that question. Pero ang tingin ko isa pang may importante rin na question is, bakit ang penalty nung hindi nagsuot ng mask is reckless driving? Because that is what I read about the policy, no? Ang magiging violation mo is reckless driving. So ang mapipinalize ba just the driver or even the other occupants?
Can I respond? Is that Alcig Tuason or Asig Galvante on the penalty now?
Mr. Chair, may I defer to Asig Galvante?
Yeah, yes, Asig Galvante. Again, the question, Asik, is very clear from the Honorable Biazon. Sure enough, you are not wearing masks, but what is charged of you by the lunch or whoever is the apprehending officer is reckless driving. Bakit po ganun?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the committee. Kung pwede po, maglahad muna ako doon sa una, yung observation lang po. Ito po ay hindi naman sinasabing kumbaga umaangal ko, but rather para matulungan na rin po yung mga enforcers na naka-field na hindi na nila kailangang parahin yung hindi nakasuot na mask at tanungin kung sila ay mag-asawa, magkasama sa bahay or whatever. But rather, para hindi po makaabala, kung lahat po ay nakasuot ng mask more than 2, kung 2 or more, hindi na po sila paparahin. Isa lang po yung siguro para convenience sa mga motorists. Pero kung ang magiging panuntunan po kung sila ay mag-asawa, hindi sila kailangan magsuot ng mask, tutugon po o susunod pa ang particularly ang LTO. Yung pangalawa po, kaya ang sa pag-uusap at kumbaga naging interpretation is that kayo po bilang kung kayo ay yung driver, yung kapakanan ng sakay ninyo kasama po sa dapat yung gampanan. Kaya po ang magiging violation kung sakaling hindi kayo tumupad, kayo bilang driver, unang-una hindi po dapat ninyong payagan. Assuming na ang pamantayan po, ang patakaran, dapat magsuot ng mask. Kung hindi po sila magsuot ng mask, hindi niyo po dapat isakay. Kaya kung kayo po bilang driver, nagsakay kayo ng hindi sumusunod, reckless po ang ano yon, ang kumbaga, ang interpretasyon dito, reckless kayo na ilinagay niyo sa alanganin yung inyong pasahero. Kung ganun pong merong pamantayan na lahat dapat rin nakamas. Yun lang po ang simpleng paliwanag po namin.
The Honorable Biazon.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm not a lawyer, no, pero I've been a legislator long enough to be able to have some reasonable experience in interpreting the law, no. Pero sa pagbasa ko kasi nung meaning ng reckless driving, it does not contemplate yung whether your passenger is wearing a mask or not, no. As if I may read, no, Section 48, reckless driving. No person shall operate a motor vehicle on any highway recklessly or without reasonable caution, considering the width, traffic, grades, crossing, curvature, visibility, and other conditions of the highway, and the conditions of the atmosphere and weather, so as to endanger the property or the safety or rights of any person. Although may mention doon sa definition ng reckless driving yung safety, the reading is that it pertains to how you operate the vehicle. Kung paano mo imaneho, how you navigate the roads. It does not refer to yung pagsuot ng face mask. So how can somebody be penalized with a law that is not applicable to that? And my second question nga, what if yung driver nakasuot ng mask and then his passengers don't wear masks? Are they going to be charged with reckless driving?
As Galvante, please, so that we can make some correction, if ever, appeal from the chair for the convenience of everyone. Yes.
I would not want to contest the statement, but however, sabi nga po dito, sa safety ng taong bayan, ng sakay, ng driver, ang iniingatan po dito. Kaya we'll submit po kung merong kautusan na hindi dapat i-consider yung gano'n na bilang reckless driving violation. We will submit it.
Mr. Chairman, the other concern kasi dito, one is that it was already admitted na ang principal consideration is the ease of enforcement. Dahil mas madali nga naman i-enforce kung lahat naka-imbudo. No? Ganon The problem is may mga rules tayong ganon na it's based on the convenience of the enforcer. Parang hindi yata tamang approach, no?
Your Honor, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Hindi po konsiderasyon yung convenience ng enforcer, but rather convenience po ng taong pipigilin kung sakaling sila po ay naobserbahan na hindi naka-face mask, yung pong abala na gagawin sa kanila kung sakaling sila po ay mag-asawa na dapat hindi naman naka-face mask, nakatira sila sa isang bahay. Yung pong abala, hindi po yung inconvenience sa enforcer, but rather yung abala sa mga mananakay, sa mga motorista. Yun po ang main consideration doon.
Well, I don't know.
Again, Honorable Biazon.
Na-misread ko
yung Biazon.
Yeah, but that's part of the thing that I heard
earlier. The kind consideration. Ase Galvante, until such time that the chair will recognize you, please. I seek the guidance. The chair has recognized Honorable Biazon. Kindly again.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Again, for the resource person, I appeal.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Kasi that is
before you respond.
May I proceed, Mr. Chair?
Please proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, as I heard the statement earlier, it was the records were bear me out. No, there was a statement that I understood to be towards that direction. No, na kasi it's easier to implement. Kasi by experience din, marami na tayong pagdaanan sa Kongreso ng mga pagdinig na there are rules. No, I'm not limiting it to this particular agency, but there are rules that are merely just for the convenience of the enforcer. Like yung requirement dati about ayoko nang pasukin yun, but there have been instances in our experience that the rules were designed for the convenience of the enforcer. But nevertheless, another issue kasi dyan, sa point na yan, is that that's another opportunity for kotong on the roads. Another perennial problem that we have with enforcers. you know, the motorists, the motoring industry or the motoring sector is one of the most highly regulated sectors. Ang daming rules. In fact, yan yung mga pinag-uusapan natin ngayon eh. And all of these contribute to the environment na meron pwedeng opportunity for kotong. And that's another one, yung enforcement ng rule na yan. That is why we are concerned, Mr. Chairman. And of course, we are also concerned with about the safety of people during a pandemic. That is one of our advocacies here. But there has to be a balance in the things that we do, Mr. Chairman. And we want to come up with a balanced policy. We're just raising points that we see are glaring on this matter, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Biazon. The Chair, for the understanding of everyone, kasama na po ang mga kasama natin sa media. Bakit mo natin pinag-usapan ito? Gusto ko lang po malaman ng lahat. Number one, the chairman, the members of the Committee on Transportation, nagpapasalamat po sa IATF. Nagpapasalamat sa mga military. Nagpapasalamat sa lahat ng pulis, sa LTO, sa lahat po ng ginagawa nila. Pagod na rin po sila. Kaya nga, itong sinasabi po ni Honorable Biazon, pinadadali sana natin. And I am, for one, has the full trust on ASEC Edgar Galvante, a former military officer. He's not a friend, but I see him work so hard. I have a full trust in him, but there are issues that he has to respond and respond well. And again, ASEC Galvante, please respond so that the chair will now be appealing for and in behalf on the Committee on Transportation and the 18th Congress, the stand as well on how to do about the face mask if ever our appeal will be considered by IATF. ASEC Galvante, please.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry for nakapag-respond po ako nang hindi ko po kayo ina-address.
Apology accepted.
I-emphasize ko lang po, ito ay hindi po sa convenience ng mga enforcer but rather yung convenience po ng tao na kung sakaling yan pa rin po ang pamantayan, hindi na po sila unnecessary pipigilin kung sila naka-face mask dahil hindi na po sisinuhin kung sila may po nakatira sa isang bahay, sila may mag-asawa o close relatives. Yun lamang po, kung mayroon pong pagbabago sa implementasyon nito na pararating sa amin, yun po ang aming implementasyon. Maraming po salamat.
Mr. Chair, may I manifest?
Yes, the Honorable Ko is recognized for your manifestation, please.
Yeah, I support this move of the IATF to wear mask for the passengers of a single vehicle to wear mask. Alam mo, ang beneficio nito is masasanay na tayo na mayroong mask. Paglabas natin ng bahay, naka-mask na tayo because sabi ko nga, this virus will be with us forever. Hindi na po mawawala itong virus na to. So, alam kong very inconvenient and at the same time, especially those with allergies na nag-wear ng mask. But as one of the benefits of this transmission of the virus, I think we should learn to really wear mask, especially every time na lalabas tayo. Even if you are alone in a vehicle, dapat siguro nakamask na tayo. Kasi ako mismo, minsan paglabas ko, nakakalimutan ko mag-wear ng mask eh. So pag ando na lang ako sa kotse, uy, balik, wala tayong mask. So I think we should learn to wear mask, especially paglabas ng ating bahay throughout our lifetime. Kasi itong virus na to, wala na, andito na to. Kasama na natin to habang buhay. So that's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that manifestation, the Honorable
Mr. Chair, last question,
yes.
Mr. Chair.
The Honorable Villago, you're recognized.
Kay ASEC Galvantes. ASEC, dun po sa natin, sasabihin natin na reckless driver yung mahuhulihan ng walang mask, di po ba? Meron na ba kayong computation about their penalties? Magkano ang penalty ng mahuhuli yung driver? I-revoke din ba ang lisensya nito kapag siya ay nahuli na walang mask? I just want to know kung magkano po ang penalty ng manguhuli. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Asa Galvante, please respond. How much
Thank you,
already, if ever there were penalties collected?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ang penalty po niyan, katulad din nga po nung halimbawa po, reckless driving, kung ano po yung mga circumstances na nagpapatunay, nagkaroon ng paglabag, reckless po yung driver. Yung kung ano po yung penalty ng first offense, second offense, third offense, ganun din po kung ang paglabag ng reckless driving situation not wearing mask. Pero kung kailangan kong pag-aralan muna, baguhin, pupagod po kami doon. We will restudy and see how we can make this more effective, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you po, Yusek. Mr.
From the
Chair.
Yes, please go on. Please go on. Honorable Villago.
Hindi po, sana suggestion lang, kunwari po, hindi mababago na talagang kailangan hulihin yung mga taong walang mask sa loob ng sasakyan. Sana naman po, wag na masyadong mabigat pa yung penalty. Kasi nasa pandemic po tayo. Baka pwede naman, instead of hulihin natin sila, that just remind na lang po yung mga drivers, kunwari po, huhulihin natin. Instead of mag-i-issue tayo ng ticket, baka pwede namang na lang, pakiusapan na lang natin yung sakay na magsuot ng mask. Kasi nasa pandemic po tayo, hindi lahat naman ibig ko sabihin, kayang gumastos sa panahong ito, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chairman, if I may interject in relation to what
Yes,
Representative Villago.
Please
Mr.
go on. Will they allow, Mr. Honorable Villago, allow a short interjection from the Honorable Biazon?
Okay po.
Yes, Madam Chair. Mr. Chair, in relation
Honorable
to
Biazon.
I fully agree with Representative Villago. And I would like to point out what Asa Galvante said. No? Bakit hindi na lang yun ang gawin nating penalty ng tao? Let's inconvenience them. Harangin kung haharangin. But I disagree that we will be applying reckless driving as a penalty because it does not apply. Parang gagawin natin ng tama, di ba? Why are we going to use a law that is not applicable? Because really, the reading of that provision pertains to how the vehicle is being operated. No? Because masks are not a standard equipment when operating a vehicle. Unlike kunyari ng helmet sa motorcycle, kasi standard yun. Kaya pagka hindi siya nag-suit ng helmet, tingin ko may violation siya, aside from the helmet law. Pero reckless driving for not wearing a mask. Now, if we are saying that this rule is not meant to just for the convenience of the enforcers but to protect the people from inconvenience, then let's inconvenience these people who are not wearing masks. If our decision is to impose a policy of wearing masks every time, then let's inconvenience those who are not following that rule. Diba? I mean, but rather than use a provision of law that is not applicable. Yun naman pala, alam naman natin na abala sa tao yung hihintuin sila. Abalahin natin. Just make sure that the enforcers will not ask for kotong. Yun lang naman yun.
Or, Mr. Chair,
yes,
may I
go
also
on.
interject? Okay. Or kaya po, siguro isa pang maganda, total, ang laki-laki naman ng EDSA, ang laki naman ng may mga billboards tayo. Bakit hindi na lang tayo gumawa ng program, ang LTO, na paglagay ng signage na always wear your face mask kahit inside the vehicle? Di po ba? Parang at least yung tao, nababasa yan, nagiging aware, isa yan sa mga pwede nating ituro sa mga motorista. Yan ang isang way na ma-educate ang motorista na kailangan naka-wear sila ng mask. Hindi yung dahil huhulihin ka lang, pwede naman tayong maglagay ng mga signage na ganyan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I may add something.
Yes. Yes, Yusek Tuazon.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Mr. Chair, I think related to this LTO memorandum, which is I think also a basis for this LTO memorandum, is the policy of the IATF, which was issued prior to this and which was issued much earlier than this, that any person leaving his residence, it's mandatory for that person to wear a face mask. Anytime that a person leaves his residence, then it's mandatory to wear a face mask. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if that is being invoked, then what is the penalty for that rule? As that rule that was invoked now, what is the penalty?
Yusek Tuason, if ever a person that will go out of his residence is not wearing mask, what is the penalty? Do we penalize anyone, Yusek Tuason? So that we will not pass the burden to the Land Transportation Office, in fairness to Asa Galvante?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the IATF issues the policies. It's the implementing agencies who actually do the implementation and the penalties for violations thereof.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr.
Please
Chair.
go on. Yeah, Yusek, the Honorable Violago.
Mr. Chair, if USEC sa IATF, Tuason, is telling us that this is a mandatory to wear a face mask every time na lalabas ka ng bahay. Di po ba? Sabi niya, it's a mandatory.